Commander Jake Morrison pressed his face against the cold metal window of his ship. Far below, the human colony on Kepler 7 was burning. Orange flames danced across the buildings where families had lived just hours ago. Black smoke rose into the alien sky like dark fingers reaching toward the stars. How many this time? Jake asked his second-in-command, Lieutenant Amy Stone. 23,000 people, sir, Amy replied quietly. Her voice shook slightly. The Zephyrians hit the main city center first, then the schools and hospitals. Jake closed his eyes for a moment. 23,000 more names to add to the list. The list that kept growing longer every month. For 3 years now, the Zephyrian Empire had been attacking human colonies across the galaxy. They said humans were too weak and stupid to deserve living space among the stars. Sir, we're getting a message from Earth Command, said Sergeant Roy Scott from the communication station. Coot it through, Jake ordered. Admiral Frank Cooper's weathered face appeared on the main screen. Even through the static, Jake could see the tiredness in the old man's eyes. Jake, I know what you're thinking down there. I know you want to fight back. As with respect, Admiral, we can't keep letting them kill our people, Jake said. His hands clench into fists. We have weapons. We have ships. Why do we keep running? 'Cause the plan requires it, Cooper said firmly. I know it's hard to watch. God knows it's hard to give these orders. But you need to trust me. Trust all of us. The sacrifice these people are making will save millions more. Jake wanted to argue, but he had sworn an oath. He had been told parts of the truth when he became a commander, but not everything. Only the highest-ranking officers knew the full plan. What he did know was that humanity was not as weak as they appeared to be. Understood, sir, Jake said. What are our orders? Take your ship to the Proxima system. Make sure your engines look damaged. Broadcast distress signals. Let the Zephyrians see you limping away like a wounded animal. And if they attack us, run. Make it look like your weapons are barely working. Fire a few shots that miss badly. Then retreat. It's the same performance we've been giving for 3 years. The transmission ended. Jake turned to his crew. These men and women trusted him with their lives. They followed his orders, even when those orders meant watching their own. People die. You heard the Admiral, Jake said. Set course for Proxima. And make sure our engine readings show we're running on backup power. Amy nodded and began working at her console. Within minutes, their ship's powerful engines were running at only 10% capacity. To any watching sensors, they would appear to be a crippled vessel barely able to stay in space. The ship Guardian was actually one of the most advanced vessels ever built by human hands. Its weapons could destroy a small moon. Its shields could withstand attacks from an entire fleet. For 3 years, it had pretended to be a barely functioning patrol ship with outdated technology as they flew toward Proxima. Jake thought about the real war, the one the Zephyrians knew nothing about. While they celebrated their victories over primitive humans, the real human military was preparing for something much bigger, deep underground on Earth. In hidden bunkers and secret facilities, scientists worked on weapons that could reshape entire solar systems. Engineers built ships that could become invisible to any known sensors. Strategists planned attacks that would happen simultaneously across dozens of star systems. The Zephyrians thought they were hunting rabbits. They had no idea they were actually poking sleeping dragons. Sir, we are picking up Zephyrian ships on long-range sensors, reported Sergeant Scott. Looks like a full battle group. Perfect, Jake said. Open a channel to Earth Command. Tell them we've encountered enemy forces and are requesting immediate assistance. Amy looked confused. Sir, are we actually calling for help? Jake smiled grimly. No, Lieutenant. We're giving them exactly what they expect to hear. Scared, desperate. Human ship calling for help that won't come in time. The message was sent using older, less secure communication methods. The Zephyrians would intercept it easily, just as they had intercepted thousands of similar messages over the past 3 years. Each message reinforced their belief that humans were disorganized, frightened, and technologically inferior. Enemy ships are closing in, Scott reported. They're demanding our surrender. Bring us about, Jake ordered. Fire a few shots in their general direction, then start retreating. Make it look like our targeting systems are malfunctioning. The Guardians' weapon systems activated, but they were set to only use a fraction of their real power. The shots they fired were intentionally inaccurate, passing harmlessly near the Zephyrian ships. To the enemy, it looked like human weapons were so primitive they couldn't even aim properly. They're following us, Amy said. But they're not firing back. I think they're enjoying the chase. Jake watched the tactical display. The Zephyrian ships were staying back, probably wanting to capture the human vessel intact to study their primitive technology. They had no idea that everything they would find had been carefully designed to mislead them. Take us to the edge of the system, Jake ordered. Then jump to hyperspace. Make the jump look unstable, like our engines might fail. As the Guardian prepared to leave the system, Jake took one last look at the burning colony below. Soon, he promised silently, soon, the Zephyrians would learn the truth about humanity. And on that day, every human who had died in this deception would be avenged. The ship disappeared into hyperspace, leaving behind the illusion of another human defeat. The Zephyrians would report back to their superiors about chasing off another weak human vessel. They would never suspect that they had just encountered one of the most dangerous ships in the galaxy, piloted by warriors who were counting down the days until they could drop their masks and show their true strength. The deception continued, but it would not last forever. General Pete Davis walked through the long metal corridors deep beneath the Swiss mountains. The walls were thick enough to survive a direct nuclear blast. Down here, 3 miles underground, the real war was being planned. The war the Zephyrians knew nothing about. He entered the main command center, where dozens of officers worked at glowing screens. Maps of the galaxy covered the walls, showing every human colony, every Zephyrian base, and every ship movement across known space. Red dots marked the colonies that had been destroyed. There were too many red dots. General, we just received word from the Proxima system, said Colonel Sam Green. Commander Morrison completed his mission. The Zephyrians believed they chased off another damaged human ship. Good, Pete said. How many more performances do we need? Intelligence says the Zephyrians are planning something big. They call it Final Purge. Lieutenant Colonel Maya Johnson has the details. Maya stood up from her workstation. When she was young for her rank, but she had the best alien language skills in the military. For 2 years, she had been listening to every Zephyrian communication, learning their plans. Sir, they're not just planning to attack more colonies, Maya said. Her face was pale. They want to eliminate humanity completely. 12 coordinated attacks across our most populated systems. They plan to hit Earth itself. The room went quiet. Everyone knew this day might come, but hearing it made it real. The Zephyrians were no longer content with destroying outer colonies. They wanted to wipe out the human race entirely. When? Pete asked. 6 weeks, Maya replied. Maybe less. They're moving ships into position now. They think they can finish US off in one massive attack. Pete nodded slowly. He had been waiting for this moment for 15 years, ever since he was a young captain and first learned about Operation Underdog. It's a plan that required humanity to appear weak while building the most powerful military force in galactic history. Contact Dr. Greg Murphy at the Lunar Research Station, Pete ordered. Tell him it's time to begin final testing on all weapon systems. On the moon, Dr. Greg Murphy received the message while standing in front of humanity's greatest secret. The plasma cannon was the size of a city block, but it was just one of dozens of weapons that officially did not exist. For 50 years, human scientists had been developing technology that was centuries ahead of anything else in the galaxy. Big begin power-up sequence on the Nova-class plasma array, Greg told his team, and activate the planetary defense grid. It's time to show what we can really do. The Luna facility was hidden beneath fake mining operations. To anyone watching from space, it looked like humans were barely able to extract basic minerals from their own moon. In reality, they had built the most advanced weapons laboratory in known space. Greg walked to another section of the facility where ships were being built. Not the weak, patched-together vessels that the Zephyrians had seen, but sleek warships with technology that could make entire fleets invisible. Each ship was more powerful than anything the Zephyrians had ever built. "How many ships are ready?" Greg asked Captain Tony Miller, who commanded the stealth operations. "It's 237 fully operational stealth cruisers," Tony replied. "Each one can take out a Zephyrian battle group without being detected, right? They've been positioned throughout enemy space for months, pretending to be space debris or disabled civilian ships. And the Zephyrians suspect nothing at all. They see what we want them to see. It's weak human refugees running scared through their territory. They have no idea that every piece of space junk they ignore is actually a warship waiting for orders." Tony had spent 3 years piloting seemingly broken ships through Zephyrian space. His missions were dangerous, but they had mapped every enemy base, every patrol route, and every weakness in their defenses. The Zephyrians thought he was just another desperate human trying to escape their territory back on Earth. President Helen Clark sat in the Oval Office reading the latest reports. The weight of the secret was enormous. She was only the 4th president to know the full truth about humanity's capabilities. The knowledge that she could end the war at any moment, but had to watch her people die to maintain the deception. "Madam President," said her aide, "Admiral Cooper is here for the final briefing." Admiral Cooper entered the room. He looked older than his 60 years. 3 years of giving orders that resulted in human deaths had aged him badly, but he never wavered from the plan. "It's time," he said simply. "The Zephyrians are moving into position for their final attack. Operation Underdog has served its purpose. They're completely committed now, with no way to retreat or change their strategy." "How confident are you in our success?" Helen asked. "Completely confident," Cooper replied. "They've spread their forces across 12 systems, thinking they need to attack multiple weak targets simultaneously. In reality, they've divided their strength while we've concentrated ours. Each of their attack groups will face opposition they can't imagine, and their home system undefended. They pulled most of their fleet for the attacks on human space. Captain Tony Miller's stealth ships are already in position around their major worlds. When we give the signal, the Zephyrian government will find themselves surrounded by weapons they never saw coming." Helen stood and walked to the window. Outside, people went about their daily lives, unaware that their planet was about to become the target of an alien invasion. They also didn't know that their military was prepared to not just defend Earth, but to conquer half the galaxy if necessary. "What about the other alien races?" she asked. "It's the ones who've been watching humanity struggle. They'll learn the truth, along with everyone else," Cooper said. "For too long, the galaxy has seen humans as weak primitives who somehow stumbled into space travel. Tomorrow, they'll discover that we've been the most advanced civilization in known space for over a century." "Give the order," Helen said. "Begin Phase 2 of Operation Underdog." Cooper nodded and activated his secure communicator. The message went out simultaneously to every hidden human base, every disguised warship, and every secret facility across the galaxy. "All units, this is Earth Command. The masquerade phase is complete. Prepare for full revelation. Operation Underdog enters its final stage in 72 hours. Its greatest deception in galactic history was about to end." and the Zephyrians were about to learn that they had not been hunting rabbits at all. Ambassador Rick Barnes straightened his old suit jacket as he walked into the great hall of the Galactic Council. The building was huge, the dome that reached toward the alien sky of Nexus Prime. Representatives from dozens of different worlds sat in curved rows, looking down at the speaking platform where Rick would soon stand. He had been Earth's ambassador for 12 years. 12 long years of listening to other species talk about humanity like they were children who had accidentally found a spaceship. Today would be different. Today would be the last time he had to pretend that humans were weak and stupid. Zephyrian War Premier Kethvak was already at the platform, his forearms moving as he spoke to the council. His blue skin was covered in the ritual scars that showed his military rank. Behind him, holographic images showed burning human colonies, destroyed ships, and fleeing refugees. Honored members of the council, Kethvak said in his harsh voice, the cleansing of the human infestation continues successfully. These primitive creatures have proven they do not deserve to share space with civilized beings. Many of the council members nodded in agreement. The Altarians, who looked like giant birds, clicked their beaks in approval. The rock-like granite folk rumbled their satisfaction. Even the Peaceful Harmony Collective seemed to agree that humanity was better off gone. Rick felt anger burning in his chest, but he kept his face calm. He had learned long ago how to hide his feelings. It was necessary for the plan to work. In just days, we will begin the final purge, Kethvak continued. 12 simultaneous attacks will eliminate the major human population centers. Earth itself will become a monument to the superiority of proper civilization. A council chamber, filled with approving sounds from the different species. Rick stepped forward, raising his hand to request permission to speak. The council leader, a tall being made of what looked like living crystal, gestured for him to approach the platform. The human representative wishes to address the council, the crystal being announced. Rick could hear amusement in its voice, as if a pet had learned to talk. Rick walked slowly to the center of the platform. Around him, hundreds of beings from across the galaxy watched with entertainment. They expected another human plea for mercy, another desperate speech about peace and understanding. They had heard it many times before. Honored council members, Rick began, his voice steady despite the rage inside him. I come before you today not to beg, but to deliver a message from Earth. Kethvak laughed, a sound like metal scraping against stone. More human words. Species has had 3 years to prove your worth. If you have failed completely, tomorrow the cleansing begins. Rick reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device. It was a quantum communicator linked directly to Earth Command. He activated it with his thumb, and suddenly his voice was being broadcast not just to the council chamber, but to every communication system in known space. This is Ambassador Rick Barnes, speaking for Earth and all human colonies, he said. His words reached every ship, every space station, every world within 1,000 light years. I am addressing the Zephyrian Empire and any who support their actions against humanity. The council chamber began to buzz with confusion. What was this human doing? Why was he broadcasting to the entire galaxy? For 3 years, you have attacked our colonies. You have killed our people. You have declared us inferior and unworthy of life among the stars. Rick's voice grew stronger with each word. We have asked for peace. We have requested negotiations. We have tried diplomacy. Kethvak moved toward Rick, his forearms reaching for weapons. Enough of this human nonsense. You have rejected every attempt at peaceful resolution, Rick continued, ignoring the approaching alien. You have chosen to see our restraint as weakness. You have mistaken our patience for inability. Rick paused and looked directly into the holographic cameras that were broadcasting his words across the galaxy. When he spoke again, his voice carried the authority of a species that had been hiding its true nature for centuries. This is your final warning. Cease all hostile actions against human settlements. Withdraw your forces to your original territories within 48 hours. Do this, or we will drop the act entirely. The council chamber erupted in confused noise. What act? What was this primitive species talking about? Cathbeck raised his weapons, but Rick continued speaking. You believe you have been fighting humans for 3 years. You are wrong. You have been fighting shadows and echoes while the real human military prepared for this moment. You think you know our capabilities. You know nothing. Rick's communicator crackled with a voice from Earth. Admiral Cooper's words reached every corner of known space. Ambassador Barnes, you are authorized to deliver the final protocol message. People of the galaxy, Rick said, his voice now carrying the weight of absolute certainty. You have 48 hours to witness the difference between the humanity you think you know and the humanity that actually exists. To the Zephyrian Empire, cease fire or face the consequences of 3 centuries of human technological advancement that we have kept hidden. Cathbeck's response was immediate and broadcast on the same frequencies. Human threats mean nothing. Your species will be extinct in 2 days. The final purge cannot be stopped. Around the council chamber, representatives whispered to each other in dozens of languages. What were the humans talking about? What act? What hidden technology? Surely, this was just desperate nonsense from a dying species. Rick smiled for the first time in years. War Premier Cathbeck, you have just sealed the fate of your empire. You have 48 hours to change your mind. I recommend you use them wisely. He deactivated the communicator and walked calmly toward the exit. Behind him, the council chamber exploded into arguments and confusion. Species that had barely noticed humanity suddenly wanted to know what the humans meant by dropping the as Rick reached the door, he turned back one final time. Members of the Galactic Council, in 48 hours, you will understand why humanity has never been conquered in over 300 years of space travel. You will learn why every species that has attacked us has either surrendered or ceased to exist. He walked out of the chamber, leaving behind a galaxy that was about to discover the truth about humanity. The final warning had been delivered. The countdown had begun. In 48 hours, the masquerade would end, and the galaxy would see what humans could really do when they stopped pretending to be weak. Colonel Sam Green stood on the command deck of the ship Leviathan, watching the countdown timer on his screen. 47 hours, 59 minutes, 58 seconds. The final warning had been sent to the Zephyrians. They had chosen to ignore it completely. In fact, they had done worse than ignore it. War Premier Cathbeck had responded by ordering all Zephyrian forces to advance their attack schedule. Instead of waiting 2 more days, they planned to begin the final purge in just 6 hours. Sir, we're receiving activation codes from Earth Command, said Lieutenant Beth White from her station. All stealth units are being ordered to reveal themselves. Sam nodded. The Leviathan was not alone in the darkness of space. Around them, dozens of ships that had been invisible for months began to power up their true systems. What the Zephyrians thought was empty space was actually filled with the most advanced fleet ever built. Signal all units, Sam ordered. Operation Underdog is now in its final phase. Drop all camouflage. Show them what we really are. Across the galaxy, the transformation began. Ships that had appeared to be broken refugees suddenly revealed themselves as advanced warships. Space stations that looked like simple mining platforms powered up weapons that could destroy planets. Civilian transports shed their disguises to become carriers loaded with fighter craft. Captain Beth White felt her own ship changing around her. The Mercy had spent 3 years pretending to be a damaged passenger vessel, limping through space, with fake engine problems and a hull that looked ready to fall apart. Now, the false panels fell away, revealing a sleek battlecruiser bristling with weapons. All systems online, her weapons officer reported. Plasma cannons charged, shields at maximum, stealth field ready for reactivation. Beth smiled as she looked at her tactical display. The Mercy was just one of 40 ships that had been hiding in the Zephyrian home system. Disguised as space debris and abandoned hulks, the enemy had grown so used to seeing broken human ships that they stopped paying attention to them entirely. Contact the other hidden units, Beth ordered. It's time to introduce ourselves properly. On the planet Zephyr Prime, War Premier Keth Beck was in his command center, coordinating the final preparations for humanity's destruction. His forearms moved across multiple control panels as he directed fleets toward human space. Soon, the primitive species would be nothing but a memory. "Sir," one of his officers said, "we're getting strange readings from the outer system. Some of the space debris is showing energy signatures. It's probably just solar radiation reflecting off metal," Cathback replied without looking up. "Focus on the attack fleets. I want every human world burning within 12 hours. The officer looked worried. "Sir, the readings are getting stronger, and they're moving." Before Cathback could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the command center. On the main display screen, contacts began appearing all around their home system. Ships that had not been there moments before were suddenly visible on every sensor. "What is this?" Cathback demanded. "Where did these ships come from?" "Unknown, sir," the officer replied, his voice shaking. "They just appeared." "Wait, we're receiving a transmission. It's from the humans." Captain Beth White's face appeared on the screen. Behind her, the bridge of her ship looked nothing like the crude human technology the Zephyrians expected. Everything was clean, advanced, and clearly decades ahead of Zephyrian design. "War Premier Cathback," Beth said calmly. "This is Captain Beth White of the Earth defense ship Mercy. You were warned to cease your attacks on human colonies. You chose to ignore that warning. The masquerade is now over." Cathbach stared at the screen in confusion. "What masquerade? You are primitives. Your ships are held together with scrap metal, are they?" Beth asked. On the display, her ship came into view. The Mercy was beautiful and deadly, its hull gleaming with advanced armor and bristling with weapons that looked like nothing in the Zephyrian arsenal. "For 3 years, you have been fighting shadows while we prepared for this moment." Around Zephyr Prime, more human ships revealed themselves. Each one was larger and more advanced than anything the Zephyrians had ever built. They had been hiding in plain sight, waiting for this exact moment. Dr. Carl Lewis watched the revelation from his laboratory on Europa. For decades, he had been developing the technology that made this moment possible. Cloaking devices that could fool any sensor. Weapons that could crack moons. Ships that could cross the galaxy in hours instead of months. "Begin Phase 2 activation," Carl told his team. "Bring all defensive systems online around Earth's solar system." What had appeared to be simple mining operations and research stations began to change. Massive weapons emerged from hidden compartments. Planetary shields flickered to life, protecting every human world with barriers that could stop any known weapon. The Luna mining facility, to look like a barely functional operation to extract basic metals, revealed itself as the most advanced weapons laboratory in known space. The fake mining equipment fell away, showing arrays of weapons that could reshape entire star systems. Major Katie Brown received her orders while her ship drifted near the Zephyrian Military Academy. For 2 years, the Phantom had appeared to be a derelict freighter, slowly falling apart as it drifted through space. Spherian patrol ships had checked it dozens of times and found nothing but a dead hulk. Now, the Phantom's true systems came online. The ship was actually a deep strike vessel designed to eliminate enemy command structures before they could react. Around the military academy, a dozen other derelict ships revealed themselves as similar strike craft, All units, this is Phantom. Leader, Katie broadcast to her squadron. Begin neutralization of Zephyrian command facilities. Back on Zephyr Prime, Kethbak watched in horror as his military bases began exploding one by one. Ships that had been invisible to his sensors were systematically destroying his empire's ability to fight back. The attack fleets he had sent toward human space found themselves cut off from all communication and surrounded by enemy forces they could not see coming. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "You are supposed to be primitives." Admiral Cooper's voice came through every communication system in Zephyrian space. "For over 200 years, humanity has allowed other species to believe we were weak and backward. We'll let you think we stumbled into space travel by accident, while you celebrated your superiority. We built the most advanced civilization in galactic history." On screens throughout the Zephyrian Empire, images appeared showing the true extent of human technology. Cities that could fly between stars, weapons that could move planets, ships that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Technology that was centuries beyond anything else in the galaxy. "You were given a choice," Cooper continued. "You could have chosen peace. Instead, you chose to try to exterminate us. Now, you will face the consequences of underestimating humanity." The act was over. The galaxy was about to learn what humans could really do when they stopped pretending to be something they were not. Captain Roy Scott stood on the observation deck of the Earthship Sovereign, looking out at what used to be the heart of the Zephyrian Empire. 6 months had passed since the revelation, and the galaxy was a very different place now. Where, once, the proud Zephyrian fleet had patrolled their territory, human monitoring stations now kept watch. The aliens who had tried to wipe out humanity were learning to live under human protection. It was better than they deserved, Roy thought. But it was the human way. The war had lasted exactly 18 hours after humanity dropped their disguise. 18 hours for the most militaristic empire in the galaxy to surrender completely. Their weapons could not penetrate human shields. Their ships could not escape human pursuit. Their commanders could not coordinate attacks against an enemy that controlled all communication. "Sir, we have a delegation from the Zephyrian civilian government requesting permission to approach," said Lieutenant Dan Parker from the communications station. "Grant them permission," Roy replied, but maintained full sensor sweeps. Old habits die hard with some species. The Zephyrian shuttle approached slowly, broadcasting peaceful intentions on every frequency. Inside would be representatives of what remained of their government, coming to sign another agreement about rebuilding their shattered worlds. Roy remembered the first day after the revelation. War Premier Kethvak had tried one final attack on Earth itself, sending his remaining ships in a desperate assault on humanity's home world. They never got close. Earth's defensive systems had vaporized the entire fleet while barely registering the attack. Professor Nancy King walked through the halls of the rebuilt Galactic Council building as Earth's new chief science officer. She was here to present humanity's latest technological achievements to the other species. The old council building had been destroyed during the brief war, when several species had tried to support the Zephyrians. The new building was designed with human technology and human ideas about cooperation. "Professor King," said the Altarian representative, bowing his bird-like head respectfully, "we are honored by your presence. Our scientists are eager to learn about your quantum field generators." Nancy smiled politely. 6 months ago, this same Altarian had voted to support the Zephyrian genocide against humanity. Now he spoke with the careful respect of someone who knew he was addressing a superior civilization. "We are happy to share our knowledge," Nancy said, "but only with species that prove they can use it responsibly." The council chamber was much smaller now. Half the species that had belonged to the old council were gone, either destroyed in a brief war or exiled for supporting genocide. The remaining species had learned quickly that the galaxy had new rules. At the center of the chamber, a holographic display showed the current state of known space. Green zones marked areas under human protection. Yellow zones showed species that were learning to follow human guidelines for peace. Red zones marked the few remaining hostile territories that humans were slowly bringing under control. Commander Don Parker stood before the assembled representatives. Asta, human military liaison. It was his job to explain the new reality to species that were still adjusting to their changed circumstances. The Human Federation will continue to expand protective zones throughout the galaxy, Dan announced. Any species that commits genocide, practices slavery, or attacks civilian populations will be stopped immediately. The Granite Folk representative, a being made of living rock, rumbled a question. What gives humans the right to make these rules for the entire galaxy? Dan's answer was simple and direct. Power gives us the right. The power to stop evil and protect the innocent. If you preferred the old system, where the strong destroyed the weak for entertainment, you are free to leave human space. Right, the rocky being said nothing more. Everyone in the chamber had seen what happened to species that challenged human authority. The Vorthing Empire had tried to continue their slave trade after humanity told them to stop. Now, there was no Vorthing Empire. Their former slaves lived on free worlds under human protection. Back on Earth, Admiral Frank Cooper sat in his office reading the final reports from the war. In his desk drawer was a list of every human who had died during the 3 years of deception. 27 million names. 27 million people who had sacrificed their lives so that humanity could position itself to save the galaxy from species like the Zephyrians. Hey, soft knock came at his door. Come in, he called. Ambassador Rick Barnes entered, looking much older than he had 6 months ago. The stress of maintaining the deception for 12 years had taken its toll, but his mission was finally complete. The Galactic Council has officially recognized human authority over all former Zephyrian territory, Rick reported. They have also agreed to our proposal for a new peacekeeping force. How many species want to join? Cooper asked. 47. So far, they understand that human protection is better than human conquest. Cooper nodded. The galaxy was learning that humanity preferred cooperation to domination. But they also understood that this preference was a choice, not a weakness. Earth could have conquered every world in known space within a year. Instead, they chose to protect and guide. What about the Zephyrian survivors? Cooper asked. The civilian population is adapting well to human administration. Their children are learning human values of cooperation and respect for life. In a generation or two, they might be ready for self-government again. Cooper stood and walked to his window, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships were patrolling trade routes, protecting colonies, stopping conflicts before they could grow into wars. The galaxy was more peaceful than it had been in centuries. Rick, do you think we made the right choice? Cooper asked. All those deaths, all that deception, just to put ourselves in position to force peace on the galaxy. Rick was quiet for a moment. Frank, in the past 6 months, we have stopped 3 genocides, freed 8 billion slaves, and prevented a war that would have destroyed 12 star systems. The species that once laughed at human weakness now send their children to human schools to learn about cooperation and justice. So yes, Rick continued, I think we made the right choice. The galaxy needed someone strong enough to enforce peace and wise enough to know when to show mercy. It turns out that someone was us. Cooper smiled. Operation Underdog was finally complete. Humanity had revealed its true strength, not to conquer, but to protect. The act was over, and the galaxy was safer because of it. The final message from Earth had been heard across the stars: cease fire or face the consequences. The galaxy had learned to choose peace,